so much of what has fallen into, or maybe I don't want to sound so cynical or like conspiratorial, fallen into or has been scooped up by this concept of white privilege, I believe is actually three very different phenomena. And white privilege is not a workable narrative, and I'll say why in just a minute. First, the first part of what gets lumped into white privilege is this cluelessness, this systematic way in which people are made clueless. And we don't talk about, I love that you described as sort of happy-go-lucky, Jenny, and I would call it as completely unaware and not able to be present in your body or your environment. And again, I'm going to talk a little bit bad about white people, but I live in Portland, and so there's a lot of white people for me to talk about. And these are not white people, these are white patterns. But it is fascinating to me when I will be on a hiking trail and there will be utter unawareness. White people just walk on the trail as if every other person needs to move out of their way. And it is, and I do like, I shouldn't do this because I should be enjoying the forest, but I like keep track of like who moves out of whose way when you're both going to be on a trail together. And it's not, I don't think they're being mean. I don't think they're like, she's a brown girl, so she should move. I don't think it's that conscious. It's just like, it's my trail, my forest, get out of the way. I'm coming through. It's a training, it's a hurt that happens. And some people would say it's happy. It doesn't look happy to me. And I think given the number of white people I've listened to over the years, it doesn't feel happy to them. It's a lot of pain. It's a ton of isolation and loads of grief when we can create spaces for white people to touch that. There's a loss there when you're made clueless, when you're lied to. And then mostly it's been by your family. Mostly it's been by your white community. Mostly it's been by white institutions. And you've not been given the space to feel the rage of that betrayal and the way in which you've been lied to and made clueless. I think the other element that gets lumped into so-called white privilege is superiority. It's the lie that you're better. And this idea that one group is better and one group is less than is not white privilege. It is a hurt of being told that you are better than. It's another lie that lives on the non-target side of any oppression. I know this intimately as a USer. I have been systematically lied to believe that my country is better than every other country in the world. And that pattern, that hurt, has us, who's 4% of the world's population, using something like 60% of the world's resources. That has contributed to the destruction of the homes of people who are using less than 0.5% of the world's resources, but their homes are disappearing underwater right now. They're being forced displaced. They are becoming climate refugees. They have lost access to clean water, to clean air, to living conditions where any human being should be able to and should be living in. And that's because of a cluelessness pattern and a combination of superiority that have been welded right here as a USer, as I'm a non-target here in the global sense. The other thing that lives in the white privilege box, I think incorrectly, are things that are just basic human rights. It's a basic human right that you go into a store and you're not followed. That's not a privilege. It's a basic human right that you get stopped by the police and they ask you for your driver's license and you don't get killed. That's not a privilege. And we've misused and misunderstood, because the minute you call it a privilege, what's that word connote? Honor? It's a privilege. It's an honor to serve you. It's a privilege. Or advantage, right? That's what privilege means. And I'm going to offer the message that we internalize as part of white supremacy, and this is why I think white privilege is continuing to reinforce patterns of white supremacy, is that if you want these basic freaking human rights, you better assimilate and become white as fast as you can. Or white people can save you and give you a little bit of their privilege. Neither of those are actually dismantling the very system that set this up in the first place. We're going to spend a lot more time on that in our September workshop, but I wanted to at least give you something to think about to begin to perhaps challenge the way that this concept is further indoctrinating and reinforcing and even reifying white supremacy. It is not serving us.